15 cities in South Florida are unraveling, and the housing market crash is not just a rumor. It is a financial crisis in motion. Behind the sunshine, more than 275,000 people are projected to leave Florida in 2025, pushed out by skyrocketing insurance premiums up to $12,000 a year, plummeting sale prices, and mortgage payments that have doubled since 2021. As inventory piles up and desperate sellers slash prices by as much as $75,000, entire communities are caught in a downward spiral. But which cities are getting hit the hardest? And what is igniting a statewide exodus? The answers reveal far more than just a market correction. Florida's population boom has slammed into reverse. New projections show more than 275,000 people will leave the state in 2025, the sharpest exodus since the 2008 crash. Miami-Dade alone is set to lose over 67,000 residents, while Broward and Palm Beach together are on track to lose more than 33,000. The reasons trace straight to the wallet. Median home prices that soared 60 to 80% during the pandemic are now sliding down $40,000 to $75,000 from their peaks in cities like Cape Coral and Naples. Statewide, the median price is $412,734, a 4% drop year over year, the steepest decline since 2011. Monthly mortgage payments have doubled in just 3 years. A $350,000 loan that cost $1,175 a month at 3% now runs over $2,300 at 7%. That extra $825 a month is pricing out first-time buyers and draining savings for anyone who bought at the top. For older homeowners on fixed incomes, the hit goes further. Property insurance premiums have exploded, averaging $3,003 a year statewide, a 34% jump in just 1 year. In coastal cities, and new annual bills routinely top $8,000, and some policies are clocking in at $12,000 or more. For a typical home in Fort Lauderdale, insurance alone can now rival the mortgage. Inventory is flooding the market. Active listings are up 34% year over year, with more than 177,000 homes now for sale, more than double the entire Northeast. In Naples, inventory surged nearly 34%, while new listings are down, showing that homes are just sitting unsold. In Cape Coral, over 12,000 homes are on the market, forcing sellers to slash prices, offer cash incentives, or pay closing costs just to get buyers in the door. Investor pullback is accelerating the downturn. Institutional purchases have dropped below 6% of sales, down from over 25% just 2 years ago. Rental yields have collapsed in cities like Palm Bay, where average rents fell 12% in a year and vacancy rates are rising. Short-term rental markets have cratered in Punta Gorda and Cape Coral, with properties that fetched $675,000 at the peak now struggling to sell for $500,000. Some investors are cutting prices by $100,000 or more just to exit. Insurance company exits and new flood zone rules are compounding the crisis. 6 major insurers went insolvent in 2022, leaving the state-backed Citizens Property Insurance Corporation as the largest carrier, now with over 800,000 policies. Nearly 89,000 properties in Broward County alone have been added to mandatory flood zones, forcing thousands to buy extra insurance or pay steep assessments. In Miramar and Pembroke Pines, more than 47,000 homes have been hit with new flood insurance bills, often running $1,500 to $3,000 a year on top of everything else. For many, the math no longer works. Carrying costs have hit a tipping point. The state's affordability ranking has plunged to 49th out of 50. With wages lagging far behind housing costs, families are uprooting, retirees are cashing out, and entire communities are bracing for a wave of forced sales and declining values. The question now isn't whether the market is correcting. It's how deep the slide will go in South Florida's hardest-hit cities. 4 forces are driving the unraveling of South Florida's housing market. And together, they're rewriting the rules for buyers, sellers, and investors alike. First, the insurance catastrophe. 6 major carriers went under in 2022, leaving hundreds of thousands of homeowners with nowhere to turn but the state-run Citizens Property Insurance Corporation. Premiums have exploded, averaging $3.23 statewide, with coastal policies often running $8,000 to $12,000 a year. In Miami-Dade, some bills now top $15,000. For many, insurance now costs as much as the mortgage itself, and annual increases of 18% are becoming the norm. Next, the affordability squeeze. Wages in South Florida haven't budged, but housing costs have rocketed out of reach. The state's affordability ranking has collapsed to 49th in the nation. Incomes in cities like Cape Coral and Palm Bay can't support monthly payments that routinely clear $2,500 once taxes and insurance are factored in. For first-time buyers, the math simply doesn't work. For retirees and fixed-income households, rising costs are forcing impossible choices: pay the bills or sell and leave. The third force is the investor exodus. Institutional buyers once made up over a quarter of all sales in Florida's hottest zip codes. Now they're down to less than 6%. In Palm Bay and Punta Gorda, rental yields have dropped below 4.5%, and average rents are falling by double digits. Short-term rental markets have cratered. Properties bought at the peak for Airbnb conversion are being unloaded at $100,000 losses just to escape mounting expenses and vanishing returns. As investors pull back, the safety net that once propped up prices is gone. Finally, the inventory flood. Active listings have jumped 34% year over year, with more than 177,000 homes now for sale, more than double the entire Northeast. In Cape Coral, over 12,000 homes are sitting unsold. New listings are down, but homes already on the market aren't moving. Sellers who bought at the top face a hard choice: cut prices, offer incentives, or watch their equity disappear. In cities from Naples to Northport, the glut is so severe that price cuts of $40,000 to $75,000 are standard. And some sellers are paying buyers closing costs just to get a contract. Each of these forces alone would challenge any market. Combined, they're creating conditions where carrying costs outstrip incomes, investor demand has vanished, and the supply of homes far exceeds what buyers can absorb. These are the four horsemen of South Florida's market correction, and every city on the countdown will be measured by how hard these pressures hit. The story of the crash isn't just about falling prices. It's about the collision of insurance, affordability, investor flight, and oversupply, reshaping the region's housing future. Dania Beach, Hollywood, Pembroke Pines, Miramar, and Tamarack are now ground zero for a new kind of housing shock. One driven not by market speculation but by a single policy change. On July 31, 2024, FEMA's revised flood maps took effect across Broward County, instantly reclassifying nearly 89,000 parcels as high risk. For homeowners in Miramar, the shift was seismic. 25,878 properties moved overnight into mandatory flood insurance zones. In Pembroke Pines, the count hit 2,279. Hollywood added another 7,392, while Dania Beach saw 3,055 parcels swept into the new risk category. Even Tamarack, less exposed than its neighbors, now faces growing anxiety as residents watch nearby premiums spike. The impact lands fast and hard. For families holding federally backed mortgages, there's no wiggle room. Proof of flood insurance is required within 30 days, or lenders will force place coverage at rates that can run thousands per year. In Miramar, longtime residents like Rodney Chin, who never saw water reach his driveway, receive notices that their homes now sit in a special flood hazard area. The new reality means annual flood insurance bills of $200 to $3,000 for a typical $500,000 home. For some, the cost can rise higher still, especially as risk rating 2.0 phases in capping annual hikes at 18%, but compounding year after year until full risk pricing is reached. Pembroke Pines' residents are feeling the squeeze from all directions. Kristen Davalos watched her insurance premium soar from $4,000 to $21,000 after moving to the city, before even factoring in the new flood mandate. In Hollywood, more than 11,000 properties are now classified as high risk. And while 2,115 parcels were removed from mandatory coverage, would city officials still recommend keeping policies in place? Hollywood's participation in the National Flood Insurance Program's community rating system offers a 20% discount, but that only softens the blow for some. Daw Beach, with its smaller footprint, faces a disproportionate challenge. The city's 355 newly reclassified parcels add to the financial strain for homeowners already grappling with rising property insurance and storm vulnerability. Meanwhile, Tamarack, which achieved a Class 6 rating for a 20% premium discount, is not immune. Prior map changes and the threat of further revisions keep residents on edge. As 20 to 25% of flood claims statewide come from outside official hazard zones, inventory is beginning to pile up in these suburbs. Homes that just last year drew multiple offers are now sitting unsold as buyers factor in the new insurance costs. Real estate agents report a sharp uptick in price reductions and longer days on market. Sellers who try to pass along the cost of new flood policies are finding fewer takers, while buyers demand steep discounts or walk away entirely. The suburban dream, once defined by predictable costs and steady appreciation, now comes with a warning label, and the flood zone squeeze is just beginning to reshape how these neighborhoods value risk, affordability, and the true cost of home ownership. Pompano Beach sits at the intersection of Florida's insurance crisis and the new era of condo regulation. Since the start of 2024, median condo prices here have slid nearly 8%, with the average sale now closing at $282,000, down from $37,000 just 18 months earlier. The bigger shock is what's happening behind the scenes. Special assessments and monthly dues have ballooned as buildings scrambled to comply with Senate Bill 4D. Owners in older towers are facing assessments of $20,000 to $80,000 per unit, often due within a year, while monthly HOA fees have climbed to $650 or more. For retirees and snowbirds, these numbers are unsustainable. Listings have surged 44% year over year, and condos that once sold in days now linger for months, with 29% of active listings showing at least one price cut. In Fort Lauderdale, the story is much the same. The median condo sits on the market for 93 days, up from just 41 a year ago. Sales volume has dropped 21% since last summer, and the pool of buyers is shrinking fast. Lenders are demanding detailed reserve studies and proof of structural repairs before approving mortgages. Some buildings flagged as non-warrantable due to insufficient reserves or pending assessments can only be sold to cash buyers. Insurance premiums, already among the highest in the state now, are now paired with mandatory reserve contributions that push total carrying costs above $1,300 per month for many two-bedroom units. Sellers are offering to pay a year's worth of HOA dues or cover upcoming assessments just to get contracts signed. Port St. Lucie, once a haven for affordable coastal condos, is under pressure from both directions. Reserve mandates have forced associations to triple monthly fees in some complexes, and special assessments averaging $12,000 to $30,000 are now standard in buildings over 30 years old. Condo prices have dropped 7.3% year over year, and sales volume is down by almost a quarter. With insurance premiums climbing and new buyers wary of hidden costs, units that sold for $240,000 in 2022 are now listed at $215,000 with few takers. Inventory has doubled, and the number of canceled contracts has spiked as buyers back out after reviewing association budgets. West Palm Beach is seeing a wave of older high-rises hit the market as owners try to exit before the next round of assessments. The average special assessment for buildings subject to structural integrity reserve studies now sits at $38,000 per unit. With some luxury towers demanding six-figure lump sums, median condo prices have fallen 6.2% since last spring, and active listings are up 54%. Units in buildings with completed reserve studies command a premium, while those facing uncertain repairs are being discounted by 10% or more, Buyers are demanding full disclosure of upcoming assessments and often walk away if the numbers don't add up. St. Petersburg's condo market, once a magnet for out-of-state investors, is experiencing its sharpest downturn in a decade. Sales have dropped 23% year-over-year, and more than a third of listings have been reduced in price at least once. Associations are under pressure to complete milestone inspections and set aside reserves for major repairs, leading to sudden fee increases and special assessments ranging from $15,000 to $60,000 per unit. Insurance costs, already on the rise, are compounded by new flood zone designations along the bayfront. For many owners, the combined burden of insurance, reserves, and assessments now exceeds their mortgage payment. Investors are pulling out, and cash buyers are driving hard bargains, knowing that every building faces a ticking clock on compliance. Across these coastal markets, the old model of low fees and deferred maintenance is gone. Reserve mandates, special assessments, and insurance hikes have reset the economics of condo ownership. Units in buildings with clean bills of health and full reserves are holding value, but the rest are facing a slow-motion reckoning. For thousands of owners, the true cost of living by the water is only now coming into focus. Punta Gorda, once a magnet for buyers seeking affordable waterfront living, is now facing some of the sharpest declines in South Florida. Single-family home prices have dropped 7.3% year-over-year, while condos have fallen more than 11%, the steepest condo decline among all major Florida markets. Properties built in the 1980s and 1990s are sitting on the market for more than 120 days, with sellers slashing $40,000 to $60,000 just to get a single offer. Investor-owned homes are flooding the listings, and short-term rental income has cratered. In the past year, over 20% of investor properties have been put up for sale, many at double-digit losses. Palm Bay, where developers once bet big on the Space Coast boom, is awash in empty new builds. Over 3,200 unsold homes crowd the market. New construction prices, which peaked at $385,000 in late 2022, have tumbled to an average of $328,000, down 15% in less than 3 years. Builders are offering $40,000 price cuts, $25,000 cash incentives, and even temporary mortgage rate buy-owns, but demand remains thin. Median incomes can't support monthly payments that now push $2,500 with taxes and insurance. Rental yields have dropped below 4.5%, average rents are down 12% in a year, and vacancy rates keep rising, especially in sprawling new subdivisions. Northport, another pandemic-era hotspot, is seeing both house and condo prices slide. Single-family homes are down 5% year-over-year, condos nearly 9%. The city's rapid growth outpaced infrastructure, leaving many developments with limited services and rising costs. Insurance rates now top $4,000 annually. While property taxes keep climbing, buyers are binging at total monthly carrying costs that stretch far beyond the mortgage. Inventory keeps climbing, and sellers are cutting prices by $30,000 or more just to compete. Lakeland, sandwiched between Tampa and Orlando, leads the nation in foreclosure rates, one filing for every 172 homes in 2024. That's more than double the national average. Home values are falling, and the city is labeled at very high risk for further price drops. The foreclosure wave is feeding a negative cycle. Distressed sales drive prices lower, pushing more owners underwater and triggering even more defaults. Investors who bought during the boom are now racing to unload properties before values sink further. Cape Coral stands at the epicenter of the crash. Home prices in the Cape Coral. Fort Myers. Metro have dropped 11% in 2 years, the steepest decline of any major U.S. city. More than half of all listings in Cape Coral have had at least one price cut. Nearly 8% of homeowners are now underwater, owing more than their house is worth, the highest rate in the country. Inventory has exploded with about 12,000 homes for sale in the market. Properties that sold for $675,000 3 years ago are now struggling to fetch $500,000. Investors who tried to cash in on short-term rentals are slashing prices by $100,000 or more just to get out. Local agents describe a market where income simply can't keep up. For many, the only way out is to sell at a loss or walk away. The correction here isn't theoretical. It's already wiping out equity and forcing families to make impossible choices. Cape Coral has become ground zero for the South Florida housing bust, a warning to every boomtown on the map. Texas and Arizona are now showing the same warning signs that swept through Florida just months ago. In Austin, active listings jumped 13% in the past year, while Dallas-Fort Worth inventory soared 31%. Houston and San Antonio are seeing similar trends with inventory up 24% and 16% respectively. Across Texas, the total number of homes for sale reached 123,000 in April, 53% higher than the typical average, pushing the state's housing supply to its highest level in over a decade. Price cuts are spreading fast. In Dallas, 34% of listings have been reduced, and in Austin and San Antonio, it's over 30%. Statewide, nearly 28% of all homes on the market saw at least one price drop in April. Arizona's housing market is cooling even faster. Greater Phoenix home prices have dropped 6.9% from their 2022 peak, and the average home now sits on the market for 79 days. Active listings in Phoenix climbed past 25,000 in July, a 36% year-over-year surge. New listings are down, but homes are lingering unsold, echoing the inventory buildup. Seen in Florida, across the Sunbelt Belt, inventory-to-sales ratios have stretched to 9 to 12 months, and pending sale cancellations are up to 15%. In San Antonio, Memphis, and Jacksonville, buyer activity has dropped by double digits, according to Zillow's Market Heat Index. With mortgage rates hovering near 7%, buyers have more leverage, and sellers are increasingly forced to negotiate. The ripple effect is clear. The forces reshaping Florida's market. Rising supply, cooling prices, and shifting power to buyers are now playing out in major metros across the Sunbelt Belt. Home buyers in 2025 face a market that is finally tilting in their favor. But every deal demands sharper scrutiny. With inventory at record highs and sellers slashing prices, buyers hold more leverage than at any time in the past 5 years. Negotiating for seller-paid rate buy-owns, closing cost credits, or even a year of homeowners association dues is now common, especially in cities where homes linger unsold for months. But lower sticker prices are only part of the equation. Carrying costs, insurance, taxes, flood coverage, and homeowners association fees can easily add $800 to $1,500 a month on top of the mortgage. For older buyers or those on fixed incomes, it is essential to request a full breakdown of all ownership costs before making an offer. Reviewing association budgets and reserve studies is non-negotiable in the condo market. Buildings facing major special assessments or with underfunded reserves can drain savings fast. Ask for documentation of upcoming repairs, insurance renewals, and any pending assessments. In flood-prone suburbs, verify the exact flood zone and get a quote for both property and flood insurance. Premiums can vary by thousands, even within the same zip code. Investors should run updated cash flow models that factor in higher vacancy rates, falling rents, and rising insurance. Leverage is a double-edged sword. While price drops create entry points, negative cash flow can wipe out gains if the downturn drags on. In this market, due diligence is not optional. It is survival. Every buyer should build a checklist, confirm all monthly costs, scrutinize reserves and assessments, and negotiate every possible concession. The smartest move in 2025 is not just finding the right price. It is making sure the numbers work long after the closing table. In 2024, South Florida saw a 34% surge in housing inventory and a projected 275,000 residents planning to leave the state by 2025, according to state and real estate records. Across 15 cities, documented price drops insurance premiums rising from $8,000 to $12,000, and a collapse in investor activity have reshaped the market. The documentary revealed policy changes like FEMA, flood zone expansions, and new condo reserve laws as direct causes of cost spikes and sales declines. Despite clear data on outmigration and financial strain, the long-term effects on local communities and recovery timelines remain uncertain as several legislative reforms are still under review. What is clear, South Florida's housing market has shifted from a pandemic boom to a sharp contraction with ripple effects now visible in other Sunbelt states. For buyers and investors, the evidence points to the need for careful research and a close watch on ongoing market changes.